And hello again. What you have just seen is a quick intro into our week-long SEEDIG 6. And we're good to go. Many thanks for joining. For those of you that I don't know, though there aren't many in the room, I'm Zorina Telanu, chairing the Executive Committee of SEEDIG. And we are ready to start our meeting, the 6th annual meeting of the Southeastern European Dialogue on Internet Governance. If you looked into the schedule, we have 15 minutes opening, which is basically extremely short, and we won't be having any formal opening statements and speeches. It's just a few words from my team and I, guiding you quickly through the program so you know what to expect during the week, and then we go directly into the main session. So nothing more than that. And on that note, I think I'm hearing myself a bit. I'm not sure why, but anyway, on that note, again, welcome to SEEDIG 6. For those of you who have been following us on social media lately and also through our emails, you've seen we've had a bit of a challenging week lately, but the team has been amazing. The SEEDIG 6 core team, DPLOS team, and everyone involved, our partners and supporting organizations, and we are ready to go. So here is in short what we have in store for the week after basically a year-long planning process. We're going to meet throughout the week at different times during the day for different type of elements in the program. And we have divided them in 3 main categories for everyone to basically understand a bit better what's happening. We have the main sessions, 9 of them, around internet infrastructure, trust and security, digitalization, and advanced technologies. And these are going to be highly interactive and engaging. No speeches there either. It's about discussion and dialogue, so a kind encouragement to everyone to raise questions, add comments, and basically contribute to the discussions. And then we have what we call creative tracks, and that's both about dialogue and having fun. And we start today with a terms of reference fantasy reader. It's basically our chance to be actors for an hour, so do join us for that. It's later in the day. We're going to read the terms of service of mobile apps and try to understand them a bit in the setting of a radio play, so it's going to be fun. And then tomorrow we have a living library where you get to read some of the coolest, I guess, books in the internet governance spheres. And these are our some of our partners, Diplo Foundation, ICANN, ISO, CRIPE, NCC, IGF, and I'm missing someone, Council of Europe. So do join us for the Living Library tomorrow. On Wednesday, we have the See Innovate, where we're trying to highlight a bit the innovative potential of our region. And we'll have a few companies from across the region showcasing some very, very cool digital solutions for social good and sustainable development. And also on Wednesday, we start our series of C-Talks, which is basically interviews with some high experts on various digital policy issues. It's live interviews, so please join and ask your questions and contribute to those discussions as well. And on Thursday, we also have fun again with virtual reality, digital policy and art. We're going to have some guided art exhibitions and talk a bit about the interplay between virtual reality, art, and digital policy. And another fun part, because we've missed going to Moldova and we've missed the wine that Jovan was talking about a bit earlier, we're still going to get to see a bit of the Moldovan wineries. We have the Moldovan wine evening on Wednesday, and we're having some guided tour through the wineries. And for some of us who can get the Moldovan wine from the shops, we can also taste them in our own, rooms. And on Friday, we wrap up with the usual SEEDIG 6 wrap up, and then with some fun music night. And this is Sonia and Chris preparing some surprises for us, so please do join. And that's basically the week. It's going to be fun. It's going to be engaging and interesting. The team has put a lot of effort into it, and I would like to thank everyone. And just do join us throughout the week. And on the logistic part, it is really, really important that you keep in mind we have different Zoom rooms for the different types of elements. So if you want to switch from a main session to a creative track, you also have to switch the Zoom room. And this is, I think, or I hope clearly explained into our program on the website. And on that note, just quickly, I would like to introduce some of the core team, give them a chance to say hi, and then we probably can start the session earlier, but let's see. And because I see Olga first, Olga, over to you.
Thank you, Serena. Good morning, everyone. Very warm welcome to our SEEDIG 6 meeting. And believe us, we are not overestimating when we are saying that this is going to be a very special meeting, both for you and for us, because the whole team tried a lot and put a lot of efforts to make it indeed a very interactive, a very interesting meeting with a lot of new elements. And believe us, we ourselves are very much excited to see how this is going to be working in practice. So please join us on a daily basis, be active in the discussions, provide us our feedback, and we hope you will fully enjoy this SEEDIG 6 meeting, and that this would become your best online event during this pandemic time. So good luck for this week and enjoy it to the fullest.
Many thanks, Olga. Moving on to Liana.
Hello, everyone. I'm Liana Galstian, member of the Executive Committee of SEEDIG. A warm welcome to you all. I'm based in Yerevan, Armenia. So it's been over a year since our last SEEDIG meeting. We faced many challenges during this period, organizational, technical, even pandemic. Nevertheless, we mobilized our forces and worked as a team under an excellent leadership of our chair, Serena, and the good team that we worked with. And I wish all of us a good week ahead, full of interesting discussions, best practice sharing, and don't forget to have fun as well.
Thank you, Liana. Yes, that's going to be across the whole week, even in main sessions. Moving on to Sara.
Hi, everyone. I'm Desta Radushi from Albania. My colleagues have already said it all, but it's been very hard working period for us. So we hope that you like the results, and we hope that you will be present during the whole week. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Sara. Sonia?
Hello, everyone. Hi from Turkey. As my colleague said, it's a lot of hard work went into this, but the reason that I'm excited, am I sideways?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So I hope you all see me now. Too bad this is all being recorded. So yeah, I'll start again. Hi, I'm Sonia, Executive Committee member. And as I was saying, I'm really looking forward to this week because I believe this is one of the biggest virtual regional internet governance event ever that we're having. So a good thing has come out of very difficult situations. And I'm really looking forward to both the main sessions and the creative tracks and the socials. So hope to see you all there throughout the week, and let's both connect with each other, discuss, and have fun.
Thank you, Sonia, for starting the fun part. And this has been my team, the Executive Committee. And now I'll move quickly to Marina. Marina has been chairing the Program Committee, another high working group. So let's move on to Marina. And she was also supposed to be our host in Moldova, and she will be our host next year in Moldova. Marina, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarina. First of all, welcome to everyone. We are here from Chisinau, welcoming to finally SEEDIG 6. We are really happy that we got to this moment. And today, the whole week, we're going to have a lot of interesting sessions. Believe me, there was a lot of work behind having SEEDIG 6 happening here. This is why I want to bring all the thanks to Sarina and the whole executive committee who made it to this day and made SEEDIG happen. I'm also excited for each session. You'll see a lot of them are focused on different topics, super hot topics for all C+ countries. In addition to that, we will have a lot of fun during C Innovation Track, the library. Please join us for the Moldovan Wine Evening. Please take any glass of wine you have at home. Any wine is welcome. Next year you can try it here in Moldova, our local one. But this year, just have fun with us and join us with a lot of questions, especially that we have wonderful contributors and moderators for each session, and they will be really happy to answer any question that might appear, as well as bringing some more challenges maybe for the CE plus countries, and bring more answers to how we can react as countries in line with the COVID pandemic and everything what's going on. A warm thanks to everyone, and please stay with us the whole week.
And today is Marina's birthday, so happy birthday, Marina. And so glad.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Thank you. I guess it's a great start. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you also. And we do look forward to actually getting to Chisinau next year. But meanwhile, as Marina had just said, do join us online throughout the fun week that we have planned for everyone. And on that note, a final thank you to everyone. You'll hear more about our partners, supporting organizations, sponsors, and everyone else involved throughout the week. But let's give to our first session 3 more minutes. So let's start. Chris, Ilona, over to you.
Thank you, Serena.
Thank you, Serena. I'll go first, I think, with the introduction here, and then throw to Ilona. Well, it's an honor to be asked to be a co-moderator for the first main session of this SEEDIG, and it's really pleased to be here and to see so many people joining for this discussion. My name's Chris Buckridge, and I'm Head of External Relations for the RIPE NCC, which is a regional internet registry for the RIPE region, which includes Europe, Central Asia, Middle East. And so Southeast Europe is very much within the community that we're serving, and something we work very closely with. The topic that we're here to discuss today is about open and decentralized internet, and what are the challenges for governing that kind of model. And the discussion of internet governance over the last, decade and a half has been very much based on this idea that the internet is decentralized, that it's distributed, but also importantly, it's an interoperable network of networks. And many of the approaches that we've taken with internet governance in terms of multi-stakeholder model, et cetera, the IGF, have been very much reflecting that paradigm, having them be open, inclusive, consensus-based, and decentralized. And so SEEDIG and the other national and regional initiatives are very much examples of that effort to decentralize and make sure that the governance model is distributed to all users and stakeholders in the internet. So it feels today like some of those principles are somewhat shaky, at least. Not only are we looking at sort of many of the governance models coming under very intense scrutiny, but we're actually sort of seeing discussion of whether the internet itself is as decentralized as we've wanted it to be, or as whether it reflects those principles of decentralization and openness. So we find ourselves here today in one of the nodes of this globally decentralized system of internet governance, bringing that perspective to broader questions of how internet governance is actually looking at this moment in history. So are the structures and the processes and the principles suitable for the internet as it exists today? And are they suitable for what we hope and expect it to evolve into in the coming years? And also, what are some of the new directions that our internet governance efforts might take, even just in the coming months? And then also particularly, what's the relevance of those developments for the internet community in Southeast Europe? With myself and Ilona, your 2 moderators, you have, well, Western Europe and Northern Europe covered. So we're certainly looking really to the group here to provide that perspective and help make sure that we see the relevance of these global developments for this community. So with that, I'll pass over to my co-moderator, Ilona Stapnik.
Good morning to everybody. Thank you, Chris, for this big introduction. I'm enjoying your words, by the way. And to discuss this very acute topic, we'll have with us today Andrea Beccalli from ICANN Ceren Unal from Internet Society and Jovan Kurbalie from DIPA Foundation. But as we promised, this session is not like the normal session with long presentations. So Andrea, Ceren, and Jovan will just help us to move forward the discussion. And we are looking forward very much to hearing from from hearing to your opinion. And we will be doing some polling. So keep your phones in front of you. And the last organizing remarks is that if you want to have a floor, to take the floor, to say something, just put exclamation mark in the chat. So we will notice you and we will have the order of who is going to talk first, second, and that's it. And finally, we have last 5 minutes for our reporter, Vasil Popa, will be reporting for our session and will summarize the main outcomes and key points from our session. And with this, we will start with the first question for the audience, first of all. I'm sharing the Menti. So dear listeners, dear participants, go to the Menti.com and use this passcode 4344278. And this is the first question for you. So what do you think first? What comes first to your mind when you hear the internet governance collocation? So you have to insert like 3 words that comes first to your mind. And once we are waiting for the responses, I will ask Andrea to share his thoughts on this. So Andrea is also a humanitarian person in most of the technical people. And I think he is the best person to start off with this.
Thank you, Lorna, and thank you, everybody. Sorry, I was trying to do the Menti code, and I missed a bit the first question. You know, multitasking is not, you know, it's kind of a trap because when you are remote, you have all these windows on, and you think you're managing everything, and suddenly you hear your names, and like, oh, what I'm doing. So, but I'll start anyway. I'll keep it short, and you know. I will spend the whole hour just thanking and congratulating for the work, but I won't do it. We will have time to do that. But you know, one thing that I think it's important to remark is that, you know, a pandemic doesn't happen luckily every other day. I think this is the second one in a century. And the words and the meaning and the impact of a pandemic now suddenly becomes you know, becomes part of our vocabulary every day, and I want us to reflect how much in these hard times and in these difficult times, where you know where the day-to-day has been affected in every other aspect, where even looking at the future, you don't know when these things will end. How much suddenly the internet becomes, you know, the solid reference point where you can recreate almost all the aspects of your lives. And I think, you know, this is something that, again, we take it for granted. It's you know, it's there. You switch on the computer, you pay your phone bills to get the data or your ISPs, and magically the internet is there even during a pandemic. So not even a pandemic can kill the internet, which is, I think, an interesting element to consider. And even the word virus suddenly has a whole different meaning and a whole different weight on that, you know. And we in the internet governance or in the internet geek world, you know, kind of we are used to virus, and we kind of, you know, it's part of the game. And suddenly we see that they have an old historic meaning that is way more destructive in the real life than in the internet life. So in all these strange and challenging times where everybody relies on basically on the internet for all aspects, the question of who's responsible, why is it working, I think it becomes even more important upon all of us to reflect, to engage, and to understand, because you know, internet works, it is not for granted, and probably, you know, if we don't take care of the different dimensions and different elements that make it that happen, hopefully in a very long time, but you know, at the next global transmitted virus, we will end up having to, you know, to discuss and to confront each other on different platforms, on different regional or national or some forms of fragmented internet, because this is something that it may will be a reality in even in our you know, probably coming 5 years, and we see daily how much, you know, platforms operating on the internet, services operating on the internet are becoming more and more localized, are becoming part of global disputes. How many of you have TikTok on your phones, and suddenly TikTok can be banned or has to be sold from a Chinese to an American company? So all of that, it does have an impact on the internet governance layers, but it's not always so evident. So if we don't understand it, if we don't see what are the interlinkages, you don't really understand also what's your role. I don't know if we will be able to do that in this session. It's very short time, but I urge you to think this way. You know, having a global single internet that suddenly it's your whole life during a pandemic time, it's not something that it happened by chance. And those trends that you see on newspapers, on news sites and headlines, when you hear about, you know, services being banned, access being restricted, well, this is an impact. This is something that it also relates to the governance of the internet. Maybe it's not always called like that, but it's a call for you to, you know, to just don't look at your app and whether you can download that app or not, but also what is underlining that, what is behind this app, and how that impactful on you, and how can you be part of the future of this global interconnected network. Okay, I'll stop here. Put a lot of things on the virtual table.
Thank you, Andrea. And let's see what we got. We have multi-stakeholder word. It's number 1. Obviously, we have collaboration, security, regulation, cooperation, but there are some fancy stuff like complicated, great people, flexibility, networking, decentralization. We have the year, it was somewhere, 2003, probably it's VSIS. I found it. This is here. IGF, privacy law users, stateless. We will talk about stateless later. Okay, let's move further to the next question. So given this great introduction by Andrea, let's concentrate more on the big challenges, how to govern open and decentralized internet. And here I also invite you to share your thoughts, like put the top three options. What do you think most hamper to govern the open and decentralized internet? We have capitalism. And I want to pass the floor to Cherin. Maybe you can start with some opening remarks about your vision of difficulties to govern the decentralized internet.
Hi, Ilona, thank you. Hi, everyone. Great to see you, albeit virtually, and I hope everybody is well and healthy, and hope to meet in person next year. So I would like to follow up on what Andrea said. So today we are facing an important challenge when it comes to internet governance, is how to fully embrace this digital transformation. And I'm also talking about this, our lives pushing online, a kind of not voluntary way overnight when this whole pandemic started. So while simultaneously ensuring the safety, security, and trust of all internet users, while at the same time preserving the critical technical properties that made the internet a success, which includes, of course, an open and decentralized architecture and infrastructure. So if we look at the trends, when people are talking about internet governance, they're mostly referring to regulation. Over the last couple of years, we were talking about this securitization of internet governance and how security-related issues, when it comes to cyber, dominated the whole internet governance dialogue. And we're seeing trends, as Andrea said, we're seeing the regulatory interventions and initiatives targeting online platforms and content regulation and liability issues for third-party content. And also we're seeing data localization trends. We're seeing steps being taken against key trust technologies like encryption, because some believe these technologies hamper law enforcement agencies' ability to combat crime or terrorism. So all kinds of activities are happening there. We are seeing many initiatives, and we're seeing this both on a national level and on a regional level and on a global level. So more or less, people around the world are focusing on the same issues. And it's all about a narrative. So at the Internet Society, we always like to talk about the internet as a network of opportunity. So during this whole securitization of the internet governance era that I mentioned earlier, people and from all stakeholders, they were mostly focusing on the threats. So seeing the internet as a network of threats without focusing on the opportunities. So this is a narrative issue as well. So we have to work around how to change this narrative. And I believe I'd like to stay optimistic. And this pandemic gave us the opportunity to see the good sides, the value and the opportunities that the internet holds. So we need to pivot to a reality where most of our lives became digital overnight. This is a true testament to the possibilities that are inherent in the internet. So I'm positive that with this more positive narrative that we currently have, despite all the unfortunate circumstances that we're living in, I think this is a good starting point to see what kind of a internet we want to see in the future, in the near future, both in the Southeastern Europe region and as a global level, because the internet is an important tool to make sure we realize our goals for digital transformation, for economic, social development and growth, that we are facing the same crisis globally, and the internet gives many opportunities to overcome that. So I'll stop here and thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. I will come back to the screen and ask Jovan probably to comment on the most striking reasons that signifies about the difficulties to govern the open internet. I see politics, I see capitalism, I see nationalism, and then we have a bunch of other things. Jovan, please.
Thank you, Ilona. That's great to be today at the opening session. I have one critical point, which is a positive criticism. We don't have a gender equality in our SEEDIG management team, but it is probably the reason why the event is so successful, and how this great team managed to navigate all technical problems that happened recently. And really congratulations, and we are proud at Diplo that we have been part of these efforts with Sorina and other colleagues. Now on challenges, I have some problem with politics. I think what we learned recently about politics is basically negative connotation, with question of corruption, concentration of power, lack of competence. But politics in its ancient Greek meaning is one of the most noble professions. It is the way how you take care of a whole community, whole state, or whatever you run. I think one of the reasons why we need to revitalize relevance of politics is basically high responsibility that we have as a society. Now we have also crisis of capitalism, especially neoliberal form of capitalism, where it is clear that many things are failing. But let me just focus on probably previous slide and the question of multi-stakeholderism or multi-stakeholder approach. It is one of the most interesting political approaches with a terrible name. I think we should have invented something better, because multi-stakeholderism is not so nice. But what we're facing now is that we are at a critical position that previous ways of approaching multi-stakeholderism may not work anymore. And I think we need at SEEDIG and other places clarity of discussions. What has happened during the COVID crisis is enormous raise of the power of two stakeholders. Tech companies, they have enormous power now. You can see the stock market and the other indicators. And second are governments. Governments now can decide if you can travel or if you can go out of your home or not. This is enormous power. It's not economic power. And I can see that the next phase will be basically more cooperation between these two stakeholders. And it's fine. They can solve a lot of problems together. But the problem is that it can lead to monopolies, to distortion, to manipulation, and I would say some other negative aspects on internet governance. Therefore, there is a need to revitalize multi-stakeholder approach on more realistic basis by addressing the issues like what SEEDIG is addressing, the question of depopularization in the Southeast Europe. It's a huge issue. You know, there are few cities in Croatia and Serbia which are almost empty cities, especially in Croatia because it's member of EU. People are in Germany. People are going away. Is there a way to stop this movement? And by addressing these issues, we are going to discuss and to communicate to concrete problems and concrete people. People are seeing these problems. Because in the past, and I'm part of this movement, we were a bit away from the real problems. We were in our bubble. And I think that bubble has to be changed in order to remain relevant. Fight for relevance will be tough. Many actors are moving into this field. Now I'm based in Geneva. World Health Organization is becoming e-health organization. World Trade Organization is becoming trade organization. Therefore, the previous idea that IGF can cover all issues in its totality is disappearing very fast. Therefore, there is a need for global IGF, and there are now reforms that are discussed, but also SEEDIG and other regional to relate to these players outside. And the last point is our region is a region which both created a lot of trouble to the rest of the world, but also provided a lot of creativity. And I think one good news is that Southeast Europe and the Balkans it excels in difficult time and gets in trouble in the normal time. Maybe in this difficult time with COVID, with all crises, we may generate something useful for Europe and humanity. I know that it sounds a bit utopian given the developments in the region, but I always believe that that unique position of the population of the Balkans, being close to the advanced civilization like European Union, but still being also deeply rooted into the other dynamics, cultural, social, that interplay can nurture some new developments. And I hope that our SEEDIG will leave some interesting seeds for discussion, not only for our region, but also for the rest of the Europe and maybe the whole world. Over to you.
Thank you. Before we move to the second question of our session, are there any comments from the audience or maybe from the chats? Chris, over to you.
Yep. We did have one comment from Vladimir Radunovic, which saying even the pro-democratic states are turning to closing their own pieces of the internet, the US with its clear network, EU with digital sovereignty, and these trends will certainly only continue to justify similar requests by governments in the SEE region and other regions. So I think that's very, very true, and I think it's something that's very timely in terms of what we're seeing in relation to, well, US developments in US politics, developments in EU politics with regard to things like the Digital Services Act.
Russia is in the same camp.
Yeah, so I think it will definitely be something that we see. Just to remind people, if you would like, because I think people have joined after the beginning. If you want to take the floor and have your mic open, we're not using the raise hand function, but if you can put an exclamation point in the chat, we'll see you here and give you a chance to speak. But yeah, I guess, Ilona, back to you and the second question.
Okay, let's move forward. Can we imagine an ideal and comprehensive model to govern a decentralized internet? So let's move from the problems to some kind of solutions. This is the question for the speakers, first of all, and I'm returning back to Andrea. Can we imagine an ideal model of internet governance? And by the way, what do we speak exactly about when we talk about internet governance model? So what do we understand under this?
Okay. Do you hear me better now with the microphone? With the headphones? Yes, perfect.
Yes.
So, okay, let me just rewind back what I was saying, and also to what Jovan and Sharon. You know, you may have heard that the pandemic was like an accelerator of already existing trends, and so suddenly Zoom, if you had invested $5 in Zoom, now you wouldn't be here. You would be super rich before the pandemic. And if you ever wondered whether to have Netflix, HBO, or Amazon Prime, now you have all of them and probably another one. So everything that was related to the internet, really, we are seeing, and maybe it's happened so fast and so naturally that it became way more than a reality. And I think what we are seeing now is that also these fragmentation or disruption of the internet singularity that we in the technical community were warning people for long is also getting way faster. And it's very visible at the application level. I was making the case of TikTok and WeChat before. And I think it won't stop there, and it actually is also moving there. There are pressures coming from all different sides, and of course, politics in this case has a lot of weight into that. That may end up pushing and many of them are very well intentioned. All the debate someone mentioned about data sovereignty and trying to figure out how to ensure that your citizens, they have the same rights and responsibilities protected offline as online. So in order to do that, you have to you try to push your regulation online. All that done in a historic moment where suddenly doing things together, it's out of fashion. And we saw what happened with the pandemic, and we saw what happened with the global institutions. It doesn't. These are ingredients that are not very promising. They risk to disrupt what at the core we shouldn't forget. And Chris and Sharon and will be able to strengthen that. Something that when it was created at its core was a very simple, lean way to interconnect computers to transmit data across different infrastructure, but was never thought to become one single global platform where everybody is online. So the rules that are governing that are still very much rules that, it's incredible how resilient they are, but were designed in a historic time where, the internet as we know today didn't exist. There was no pandemic, and there was no, a global kind of collective refusal of finding common grounds and dialogue. So suddenly, the technical community finds itself for being almost anti-historic in my views, in like almost linked to a past that is not happening anymore. Actually, it's kind of out of fashion somewhat. But still, we have to recognize that our infrastructures, our organization, our architecture at the technical level also needs to evolve, and we cannot just rely on this magic resilience of these protocols or these technical agreements that we have among us, because the threats are increasingly larger, and from actors that we thought they will never turn into the into the governance of the internet. That includes actors that are not Iran or China or Saudi Arabia, but also some forms of legislation of the European Union. Well, the US, I think we can have an entire SEEDIG of how they are behaving on that. But and if the general public doesn't understand that, it's easy that this discussion also falls into this very partisan, sovereignistic approach to politics that we are seeing everywhere. And it's so infective, just because we are in a pandemic. It's so infective that it goes all the way into the virus doesn't exist. It's actually created by 5G, and I will never get a vaccine, even if a vaccine is out. And the irony of all that is that our dear baby, the one single internet, in a way, also fueled that, because allowing everybody to be online has also some side effects that are not always so positive. So, indeed, we have to do, and that's kind of a reflection on ICANN, and I would like to hear also what the other things. We need to do a lot of work still to come out from our technical bubble, and we have been playing kind of the scaremongering role of, wait, watch out, don't touch it, these things, otherwise if you break it, we cannot go back. And now suddenly the threats of fragmenting the internet are very present, for sure at the service level. And I think there is a new series on, I think it's on Netflix or HBO, about social platforms and how I don't remember the name. I just read on the newspaper, and they are interviewing all the engineers at Google and Facebook and Twitter, and they say, "Look, we designed that. We wanted to know everything you type, and this is an effect, but we didn't think about it back then." Well, all those things, now that we are everybody online, they're kind of on an accelerator. It's like this thing that you have Jovana under in Geneva, this large accelerator of particles. I think we have seen the same around how the internet works, and if we don't take care of that, even a technical community, I think we get closer to the crack, and then I don't know how we get back, and how to avoid that. I think the work that we are doing within SEEDIG and the National Regional IGF is very good, but we have to also push it to get it larger and to see what are the other fields of discussion that may have to be involved in discussion about internet governance. Otherwise, we won't. We won't have to wait another pandemic. I think it will break by itself.
Okay, thank you. But anyway, I have a question for Sharon, because Internet Society always have a vision how to develop internet. So probably you and your colleagues or the whole Internet Society community was thinking of how to make a really good model that will encompass all these particular issues that causes too many difficulties to govern the decentralized internet.
Yes, Ilona, thank you very much. Actually, we have been working on that for a long time, but more specifically, we have a project which we call the Internet Way of Networking, trying to establish the technical critical properties that made the internet a success. And then in an attempt to bridge the policy world and the technical world, which we see in our mission, we developed an impact assessment toolkit to provide a toolkit for policymakers, technologists, all the internet users and advocates that can use it to assess the implications of change, whether these are policy interventions or new technologies. So let me put it on chat, a cool infographic, and there you can see the links to the more details. So with the help of the consultation period that we conducted with our community and experts, we identified 5 critical properties of the internet way of networking. So the toolkit was developed in a way to ask us questions when we're developing new technologies or new policy initiatives, whether or not these initiatives impact the infrastructure and architecture of the internet in a fit for purpose manner, because we're all talking about similar issues all around the world. The internet is exactly as Andrea said, is not the same when it was developed. I mean, the European Commission said it's now with the consultation for the Digital Services Act, they already established that. So when the e-commerce directive was introduced in 2000, it's quite different. But also the regulatory environment provided by the e-commerce directive enabled the growth of digital services. So if you think about it, the e-commerce directive is a good example of a fit for purpose regulation. And so these properties and the toolkit is intended to work and in a developing way. So it's a living document. We already have some use cases around intermediary liability, data localization. We provided some comments for the new IP proposal, and we provided some comments to the Digital Services Act consultation. So it's what we ask before coming up with an initiative is to make an impact assessment, just as we're accustomed to do that when it comes to the environment, for example. If you have a big project, you need to have an environmental impact assessment to make sure that this doesn't have a bad negative impact on the environment. And the same should apply when we're trying to govern the internet as well. So whatever we do, and again, as Andrea said, it's almost always made with good intentions. So of course, governments feel obliged to protect the security and safety of their citizens. But sometimes, and when in panic, these decisions are being made, we might have unintended consequences on the internet infrastructure and architecture, which hinders innovation. And so we have to work together, and the internet essentially is a collaborative network. So collaboration is in the essence of the internet, so that it should be governed in a collaborative manner, no matter what. And it's not just a nicety. We need to sit around the table, and technical community needs to be heard. Of course, governments needs to be heard. Everybody should be involved. It's like tech companies, the industry should have a say, and the users as us, we have a say, and we need to make sure that this collaborative approach continues. So we have to work together to ensure the external impacts to the internet help it grow and improve without fracturing or weakening the critical properties that made the internet a success. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. I see a couple of comments in the chat, but given that we have not so much time, I will move forward to the last question for the speakers, and then we will move to the comments in the chat. So with all this said, we wonder, how do domestic and global governance models correlate? So are there any contradictions? How can they be overcome? And we looking forward to hearing from the CE region, so how these internet governance models are developing in your countries. And here I open the last poll. So do you think that domestic internet governance policy of your country significantly diverges with the globally agreed internet governance principles? So it would be great to see how many countries really follow the multi-stakeholder model, and how many countries, how many states, how many countries prefer their own way. And here I would like to ask Jovan to comment probably this divergence, because obviously we see, and it was mentioned in the comments, that we have some states that follow their own way, follow the global big politics, sovereignization. So probably you have some comments on that. Is it possible to meet all the demands and to make a consensus to make this really acceptable global IG principles for everybody, for each country?
Well, Ilona, let me just start with the most immediate example. It is the question of a TikTok controversy. United States in international negotiation argues against data localization as a principle. But when you really analyze TikTok controversy, it is a data localization issue. And we have many actors, and this is one example. I can mention many examples of other countries where you have sometimes even confusion. In one fora here in Geneva, quite a few countries argue for one principle on human rights, then they go to the WTO, argue for the other principle, and the other places. There is enormous confusion, and in this discussion, confusion is related to one major element. The previously technical issue became political. And the technical community is very often out of its depth to cover other political legal issues. Political community and diplomatic is not prepared to handle this issue. But there is one underlying tension that we have to address with clarity. Internet is global in its functionality, so far, to touch the wood, but it is very local in its impact. Therefore, the element of insisting on the global rules and global regulation of the internet will always hit the sort of local specificities. They can be manipulated, but many of them are real. They're related to cultural, economic, social, and other developments. And there are many examples. Again, example from the World Trade Organization. Many developing countries don't want to engage in e-commerce negotiation because there is no clarity. They're for e-commerce, but they're basically afraid that they may lose if there are global rules. Therefore, confusion is one element. And one way I believe that we will be facing the situation that it will get worse before it gets better. But one good news is that we have to build our internet governance house on the realistic principles and on the reality, political, economic, social, cultural reality. This is the first underlying point. And I have to admit that our community, when I say our community, IGF and broader community, has been to some extent inflating the sometimes questionable narratives. Nothing is given in life. I mean, internet infrastructure is great, but if it doesn't serve the purposes of humanity and societies, it may be challenged. And what Vlada said, and it's a reflection of our internal discussion, is that we will lose and we will become obsolete, like dinosaurs. And if we stick to it was that good in old good days, the society is changing, and internet community and our community in our region has to adapt, probably to completely different reality. Underlying values are to keep centrality of humans, respect for human lives, respect for human dignity, respect for the human rights, and realization of human potentials. Internet served in the past those core values, but it remains to be seen what will come due to these tectonic shifts. And they're not just related to what we follow in the news. I think they are really deep tectonic shifts around the question of economy, identity, politics, and therefore fasten seat belts. There will be bumpy road ahead of us. It's important to keep to be agile, to think fast, not just to get to the all good thinking. It was nice 10 or 15 years. Reality is changing. We have to change as well in order to remain the same.
Thank you, Jovan. Actually, I wonder who voted for this. You know, the domestic policy coincides with the global. At least put in the chat the name of the country. Who is that lucky person? Chris, over to you. The comments. We have like 2 minutes for that, and then we will give the floor to the reporter.
I think sort of in the chat here, what we've seen has been mostly Vlada's comments, and I think Jovan mentioned that and has been following that as well. So I think there's not a huge amount, although I think Olivia has just jumped in here as well. Unfortunately, the leadership of some countries has entered an unprecedented period of double standards and hypocrisy. I'll let people read it for themselves, but I think that's an interesting point. And I think one, while you and I, Ilona, developed that question that just went up on the Mentimeter, I think there's an interesting gap there in terms of what are actually the agreed global principles. So I think that's whether you want to regard what people say as the agreed principles or whether what they do is the agreed principles. So I think there are some very open questions there. I think sort of from my perspective, Jovan sort of wrapped up quite nicely a lot of the key points there, but I think also it wraps back nicely to the beginning where Andrea and Charan both mentioned the pandemic and the changes that we've seen during this period. And I think along with all that we've seen in politics, along with technical developments, this period of the pandemic has really sharpened a lot of the questions and the open questions and challenges and concerns that people had about internet governance. So I think it's in some ways very timely that this is happening now alongside all of the developments at the UN and elsewhere about how internet governance looks moving forward. But yeah, I'll throw back to you, Ilona, and thanks everyone for the comments in the chat.
And I think it's high time to introduce our reporter, Vasily. How to make it right?
Vasily, hello.
Vasily, good.
Yep.
The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vasily Popa. I'm the reporter, and I was listening to you very closely, and shall present some of the bullet points that I noticed. Right. So the first bullet point that I noticed was the idea it's basically a draft for our messages, but I think there was a lot of discussion about the politics and the stakeholders. And as Andrea said first, that there is an idea, or was an idea, that internet was decentralized, and this is like its core property, but it's changing over the time. And another thing is that we live right now in after the pandemic. It was really clear that there are two stakeholders that increase their influence and increase their basically their regulations on the internet. And unfortunately, they see, especially the government, they see the internet governance in terms of threats more than in terms of opportunities or place for innovation, etc. This is a sad development. And one bullet point that I noticed in several speeches was that organizations like SEEDIG and other stakeholders from the civic society, from the tech community, from academia should spread the awareness between ordinary internet users and especially in the civic society to keep some pressure, some dialogue with the big corporations, with the governments, and try to explain them and to push them to stick to the principles on which the internet was built from the very beginning. And there is also a contradiction, as one of the speakers said, about the contradictions between the local rules, especially in the developing countries, and the global rules that are imposed by, let's say, more digitalized countries, especially in the US and European Union, and some rules that are not exactly applicable to, let's say, Balkans or other regions. That's basically it. I'll certainly add some ideas that because there's much more that I noted myself, and we'll prepare this draft to be a new SEEDIG 6 message. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasil. Serena, if you hear, by the way, I wonder if we have to agree on these messages, or the audience will have an opportunity to comment after the session ends, after the whole SEEDIG ends.
Yes, we'll put them together, all the messages from all the session, publish them for comment, and then people can.
Okay, okay, good.
This was just a quick overview of what's there.
Good. So the time is up. I think we had a good starting session to kick off the whole SEEDIG meeting. And I'm very thankful for all the speakers that contribute to our discussions, as well as all the participants that show their views in the Mentimeter and in the chat. And I also thank my co-moderator, Chris, for the enormous help to organize this session.
Thank you, Ilona. Thank you all to all the speakers. Thank you, SEEDIG, for having us here and for kicking off the meeting with such an interesting conversation. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you also, Jovan, Jeren, and Andrea. For the housekeeping part of the wrap-up of the session, we reconvene at 3 p.m. Central European time for another interesting discussion, this time on digitalization and the population, very close to our hearts. We know what's happening in the region, so do join us for that as well. And then we have fun with the terms of reference fantasy reader. Please join for that as well. And all the Zoom details are on the website. Many, many thanks, everyone, and see you later.
Bye.